Sean, thank you so much for taking the time during this quarantine to come on remotely. I know it's weird times, but I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Just been hanging out. So
So I told you a second ago if there's maybe a something that you in the last 30 seconds that you were able to think of that's a little bit unique or a little something that the world doesn't know about you. I know you're out there and you have your own podcast and everything, but is there a little something that no one knows about the Sugar Show?
I don't know. I was looking at. I do like to snack. I always am snacking. I have a good. I mean, I think people might know that though.
Well, I know. Well, I was just listening to you on. I was re-listening to you on Rogan. I know
Uh,
you got a whole change of diet, so at least it's good that you're eating good things.
yeah, eating always quality food. Well, yesterday I got a little out of hand at the Easter, but yeah, for the most part, definitely mostly quality food. Something that no one knows about. I was telling him, I'm pretty much. I don't know. That's tough. That's tough.
Is there anything during? Well, first of all, how's the quarantine going for you? You're in Glendale right now.
Yeah, I'm in Phoenix, North Phoenix.
Okay. And
Yeah.
how's that been going so far? With have you been able to train? Are you still kind of? I mean, I know you're posting workout videos. Are you staying active, staying ready?
Yeah, here we put some in my wheel. Yeah, I'm pretty much active. It doesn't for my life. Nothing's changed. I haven't done any. Nothing changed. Just training once a day for the most part, rather than twice. That's the only difference. Other than that, yeah, nothing's changed.
Do you have
Trained this morning.
Do you have like set partners or I mean fewer partners? Is there someone like that's all healthy, that's fine that you train with? I know it's weird for fighters who it's a contact sport to be able to train in conditions like this.
Yeah, there's a good group of us. Probably about 6, 7 of us that train pretty consistently. And then I go do my strength and conditioning with my strength and conditioning coach Brandon Harris. So yeah, we keep it. You see the same people. There's probably about 6, 7, 8 of us that train consistently.
So I want to take you back because I mean, what's crazy is there's obviously an incredible amount of hype around you, but the biggest part is that how young you are and right where you are in the mix of within the UFC. For you, like if a 15-year-old or a 12-year-old Sean pictured himself at 25, did you ever imagine that you'd be sitting in this position right now as an undefeated fighter in the UFC?
Yeah, but with like I pictured all of this. I pictured maybe not when I was that young. Definitely when I started fighting, when I kind of figured out what the UFC was. I pictured this not to a T, totally different me. Like I pictured a different me in this position, the same position, undefeated in the UFC. I'm a hype train. I knew I was going to be popular when I got into. I knew I was. My fighting style is. You go watch my debut against Terry on Ware. I'm just doing stuff that other people aren't doing. I'm doing 720 spinning heel kicks. I'm just doing sweet stuff that not necessarily no one's ever done, but I have really good skills to back that up. So I knew I was flashy. I knew I was going to be, a popular fighter. So I did picture kind of all of this. Um, but I not to a T, not necessarily pictured how I would become because I was not always into the self growth of everything. So, but yeah, I kind of saw all this happening.
Did you? I mean, at what point did you kind of get into MMA and really want to make a life out of it? I mean, I know there's a lot of I talked to a lot of fighters, and some it's because they were bullied or they're trying to get out some anger. For you, did you have one main reason of why you got into MMA and what it brought to you?
I started kickboxing. My buddy, actually, I think the first time I ever went to a gym, I learned like an armbar and a triangle, but that quickly went to kickboxing and no jiu-jitsu, no wrestling for like a couple years. So I really got into kickboxing. Really just to be able to defend myself and feel tough, feel cool, be able to know I could beat someone up was a cool feeling at such a young age and how small I was. I wasn't a big kid and I was super, super insecure. And just knowing I could beat someone up was a good feeling at that age. And so that's why I originally got into it.
And then did your parents kind of support you? And like, at what point did you tell yourself, I'm gonna be a UFC fighter?
It's so hard to remember. I'm trying to. I think about that, like where was that decision, and um, I don't really know. I know it was anywhere from 16 to 18. But once I moved down to Phoenix, I think I was 19. That really made it real. But before that, I didn't know where I was going to train. I knew I had to get out of Montana. I knew I wasn't going to be able to get in UFC there. So I needed to figure out where to go. But then once I moved to Phoenix when I was 19, that really kind of, okay, this is for real. But I remember I was training. After school, I'd go train. But yeah, my parents were really supportive. Um, I don't think you know, for them, it's like, okay, my kid's gonna just go to kickboxing after practice, and I'm 17. I'm almost 18. My mom's saying, well, you need to work, you need to get a job, you need to make money. So then I'm like, I can't go to school, go to kickboxing, and then go to work. So I really had to figure that stuff out. But yeah, I think about, I'd say anywhere from 17 to 18 is when I kind of was like, I'm gonna try to get in the UFC.
And what do you think you would be doing if you weren't a fighter?
Well, if I wasn't a fighter, I wouldn't be the same person I am today. As far as like wanting to grow, like more spiritually and stuff. So I don't know what kind of person I would have been. It's hard to say. I probably would have just been back home and Helena working a 9 to 5 and living that life. So I don't know. That's a tough question.
I think what's also impressive is and I'm sure you've probably inspired a lot of people from, small place in Montana is that someone from, a place like Montana has this self-belief that like you could do anything. Where do you think that kind of self-belief and will to have a career and be successful and be the best at what you do, where do you think that kind of comes from?
I don't know. I feel like kind of wanting to prove people wrong, probably. Growing up, I've played sports since I was 3 or 4 years old. Football, basketball, soccer, baseball. Those four sports. Every season we'd come around, we'd play a different sport, and probably just trying to prove people wrong. I think I was so small when I was playing football. Like I thought I was really good, and I was fast, and I could catch, and I played Madden all the time. And I knew every NFL player. So originally, I wanted to be in the NFL. I had no idea how unrealistic that was. But like when I would get put in, the coach would put me in because they didn't see the potential I had. That drove me crazy. I'm just like, oh, like, it just drove me crazy. I think that kind of probably started it to where I wanted to just kind of prove people wrong. Then once I started kickboxing, I was just naturally really good at it, and I'm like, oh, this is it. I'm not going to school. I'm not going to college. I'm hardly finishing high school. I'm ready to be done with school. And I was like third grade. I want to be done with school. So I was just like, I got to figure something out. So I think once I found that, it was easy for me to just put all of my attention into it and just try to get really good.
And then how do you? I mean, you spoke just a few times about this growth and just kind of getting better. How do you on a daily basis? I mean, you're one of the best fighters in the world. Continue to find that kind of motivation to grow every day. I mean, there's always aspects to improve your game, but how do you look at that and where does that kind of play into your mentality?
Yeah, for me, like right now, I'm pretty into breath work. There's a ton of breath work apps you can download. I have XBT. They have a list of free breath work they do. They guide you through inhales, holds, exhale, hold, all that stuff. I find that really meditative, and I'm learning how to breathe properly. So breathing, meditating. I have a sauna at home, hot tub, a cold plunge. Those are things that the hot and cold I try to do every night. That cold exposure is so important for my life, like for my brain. Really, is like I could get if I don't do all the things I need to do, which is breathe, meditate, cold, just small things. Like my thoughts will take over. I'll be anxious. Like I'm not perfect at it. There's days where I definitely my thoughts get out of hand. I'm anxious and all that stuff. But for the most part, that's why I do all that at peace. Feel like I have that peaceful feeling inside.
And will you talk about like what when you say that breath work, like exactly what that looks like are you sitting in a dark room? Are you doing it for 10, 15 minutes, 2 minutes? Like what's that look like?
There's a list of breath um, workouts they do. It goes from anywhere. I think the shortest one's 5 minutes, the longest one's 40. Not longest one, but it goes all the way up to 45 minutes. They might even have longer ones. And I've done pretty much all of those. Like this morning, I did the morning routine breath work. It's 8 minutes long, and I did that outside in the sun. I wake up, get hydrated, go in the sun, and I did that outside in the sun. Then I went to practice. I did another breath work. It's the pre-workout one, which is I think 9 minutes, and just doing those. It just makes you more conscious of your breath throughout the day. So then I'm driving in my car after practice, not listening to any music, not listening to anything. It's silent, following my breath. Just little things like that can really change your entire life. It's just the discipline about doing them.
And have you always, do you feel like, been this disciplined? I mean, I know even in that Rogan interview, you talk about having to discipline your diet and stuff like that. I mean, how did you go from being, a teenage Sean who's, really talented to then being the professional who's, making a run at gold?
Yeah, from 19 till now is really like where all this. It's when I moved to Arizona and I got out of just my routine and just being around the people I was around. That was when I moved in with Tim Welch, and he was already he had learned a lot more. He'd already lived with a bunch of coaches. He had already lived by himself, so he was more experienced, and he'll be 30 soon, so he's a little older than me. And when we moved in, he was pretty much more experienced in those aspects, but we really got into the healthy lifestyle together, which was pretty cool. Learning about how to, what foods to be eaten, what, reading books was a huge part of my life from 19 till I read now, but not nearly as much as I did from 19 till I'd say 22. I'd go to the coffee shop every day and read before practice. I don't read as much right now, but so I'd say 2 months ago I was reading more than I'd ever read. So it's just like I'm going through phases where I read a lot, or I'll listen to podcasts more, um, stuff like that. But
What is it about reading or listening to podcasts? I think it's really interesting because I didn't know that about you, but um, what is it about that kind of disciplined you? Do you think is it the discipline of like sitting there with a book, like just reading, like putting your phone down, or what did that bring to you personally?
well, it depends. If you're into a good book, you kind of want to read it. I don't read fiction books. I read, I guess there would kind of be called self-help books, but even just like one that comes to Mind Gyms was a book I read when I was younger, a little bit younger, and it was helped a lot with my mentality. But for the discipline aspect, um, I remember hearing discipline equals freedom. Have you heard that, Jocko?
Yeah.
Discipline equals freedom, and it makes a lot of sense. Just I have to do, I have to be disciplined. For me, I want to be world champ. I want to be the best fighter in the world. So it's just like I understand I have to be disciplined with the hot tub, that cold plunge, that routine. There's certain things I have to do during the day if I want to become world champ. So being disciplined to those, um, it comes down to how bad do I want it. So, and I want it.
Do you ever feel like you might write your own book one day?
Whew, I've heard smart people say the hardest thing they've ever done was write a book. So I don't know. Maybe someday in my career it'll happen. Someone will help me with it, and we'll figure it out. But I don't plan on it. That's another thing I do. I journal a lot, especially when I feel like I'm going through something. When my like right now, my life's pretty. It's pretty. We're training. I just won that big fight, but going through those 2 years of being out for no reason for something I never did. I had a lot of mental talk, a lot of I need to write, I need to get stuff down on a journal. So I have journals from 3 years ago. I've been journaling a lot, and I think that helped quite a bit.
And do you journal like literally like handwrite in a journal, pen to paper
Yeah,
every day, or
yeah.
how often?
Well, I have two journals. I have one that's just a blank piece of paper, and I'll write in that. There's days where I write in it for months in a row. Then there's times where I don't write in it. Like in the last 10 days, I've probably written in that one 2 times. But I also have a 5-minute journal, which is every morning I write in that. It's what are 3 things you're grateful for? What is 3 things that's going to make today great? And a daily affirmation. So it's like that. I do that every morning.
And so at what point so yeah, so that was interesting that you talk about the past 2 years obviously didn't were I would imagine really hard. Could you talk about well, I think there's two things. I think one, outside looking in, everyone was always like, when's he gonna be back? When's he gonna be back? And then how's he gonna look when he comes back? And then you put on that performance at 248, which was, fantastic. So for you, like, how and then you see kind of like that rush of emotion at the end, which I could imagine was pretty strong for you. Like, how did you stay strong? Not only strong mentally, but physically. I mean, you looked so much better in that, so much more improved. You looked ready, and people, I think people sometimes be like, oh, he's a gamer, he smokes weed. Those that's what the critics will say. But you came in there and looked better than ever. How did you stay ready during those 2 years?
Pretty much all those things I talked about. Journaling, I feel like that was keeping my mind sharp. Reading, I was reading a lot these last 2 years. Dealing with that, I was reading a lot. Journaling. I was training. I was training consistently. I never stopped training. I trained more. I was doing strength and conditioning with a real strength and conditioning coach that focused on just me. So I would go in there. It wouldn't be a group of fighters kind of going in. It would be a huge focus on me. I think that helped a lot. I upped my jiu-jitsu, my jiu-jitsu training. So, and I just had that, they kept telling me, you'll be done this, it'll be done in 2 months. It'll be done. So I never knew when I was going to be able to fight. I just knew I needed to be ready for when the day came. And it took, a lot longer than I thought. So when it did come, yeah, you said the rush of emotion. I pictured that moment so many times, standing next to Joe Rogan, getting my hand raised. So it was cool to just really be able to feel that and experience that, knowing like I'm doing everything right now. I'm training hard. I'm doing everything that I think I need to do to become world champ. So it felt good that it paid off.
Did you ever have any doubts along those 2 years that you would come back and be either as good, or if you could still do it, if it would be too much time off, if, maybe you got anxious about what, you would look like when you got back in there?
No, I knew I was when you train, you get an idea of where you're at. I'm training with really, really high level dudes, and I'm, doing good. So I knew where my level was at. I grappled Takanori Gomi and Gilbert Melendez. Like, I seen where my grappling was at. I knew how high level it was. I know how good I am at striking. So I knew I was going to go in there and smoke that dude.
And I mean, for you, since the Contender Series, the huge knockout, since then, there was so much hype around you. I mean, everybody in the UFC world knows about you, and there's just, you're considered probably a blue chip prospect in everyone's eyes. Do you feel that pressure? I mean, you're 25. Things have happened pretty quickly, even with that 2 year layoff. Would you say you're someone who feels pressure, and how do you handle pressure when you do feel it?
I feel like I kind of put the pressure on myself. I'm the one saying I'm going to go out there and knock this dude out in the first round. I'm talking myself up. I'm saying I'm this good. So I definitely put the pressure on myself. But if I couldn't handle it, I wouldn't say that. I'd say we'll see. We'll see how good I am. I don't know. I haven't been fought in 2 years. I could stay that and make it not as much pressure on myself. Be like, well, I kind of told him, or I could say I'm gonna go out there and knock this dude out, because that's how I truly feel. And you know, I didn't. I mean, I guess you can kind of see through the walkout, the fight. I didn't feel any pressure. I didn't. I didn't feel it.
Do you set pressure on yourself or an expectation on, like, I want to be world champ by 2022, 2023? Is there what do you think about when you think about being world champ?
It'll happen. It has to. Like, it's gonna happen. I don't really know when. I'm not. If I'm not champ by this date, I'm gonna be upset. No, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm 25 years old. I don't. If I'm not champ until I'm 30, I'm not. I'm not. I just don't see me not being champ sooner than later. But if I'm not gonna be upset about it.
And how do you continue with your coaches? Like, what's the conversation after a fight or going into a new fight, new camp, on how you assess where you're at, skill wise? And I mean, are you someone who watches tape? Do you watch tape on your opponents? What's that process like for you during camp?
Yeah, after every fight, Tim always tells me, "All right, let's pretend we lost that fight. Let's go get better." So that's been my mindset since I turned pro. And you know, I got done training this morning and got I trained with really good dudes. So it's you constantly competing. Every week you're competing with high level people. So that part of it's easy. We just get back to the gym because I enjoy being at the gym. It's not like God, I gotta go train. I get to go train. I love training. That's what I look forward to. Like when I go to sleep, I'm pumped to go train the next day. So that's easy. As far as training videos, Tim and I watched a couple of Jose's last fights, and we're just like, I'm gonna smoke this dude. So it was pretty much we watched a couple fights, seeing that I was just on another level, and we went into that fight pretty confident. But we don't know who we're fighting next. Once we do, we'll find out. Watch a couple videos, realize I'm probably gonna knock them out, and then just get to training.
What's somebody like Tim Welch kind of brought to your life? I mean, I know you have the podcast. I mean, you've known him for a good amount of time now. What's having someone like that by your side kind of do for you as a fighter, and just your mentality in general as a person?
Yeah, obviously he's my coach, but he's my best friend too. Like we're gonna doing the podcast. That's something that's so fun. And we have our Patreon channel, so people subscribe to our Patreon channel, and now we get to build this studio from the podcast. From that, like, so it's super cool that we just moved into a new studio, and it's fun to experience all that stuff with him because I was an amateur at the time. He was still fighting, and every time I had a fight come around, he'd start coaching more. He would kind of put himself in that coach role, and that just kept happening. I kept improving, and then it's I don't know. It's a cool relationship we have because he's my coach, but he's also my best friend. Like we're constantly just burning each other down, making fun of each other, and but also like if he finds a really good podcast that he thinks is going to benefit me, he'll send it to me, and vice versa. Find something on Instagram that he thinks is going to benefit me, he'll send it. Like so, it's that kind of relationship, constantly helping each other grow. We're keeping each other accountable. Like you're doing your meditations, like and I think that's important to keep people you care about accountable. So cool. It's a cool relationship we have.
And what is it about podcasting? I mean, you're one of, I think, not that I can think of off the top of my head, but I don't think any fighters really have a podcast, and a podcast that's as successful as yours. Um, what is it about podcasting that you enjoy, and where do you see that going in the future? Is it something you hope to continue for the indefinite time, or what do you see with that?
Yeah, once we started the podcast, we realized like we're helping people have more healthy lifestyles and kind of learning about movement and eating better and meditation and certain books, and like just reading the comments and the amount of people that reached out at the beginning saying how much we're helping with them. That's really what Tim and I both enjoy most about the podcast. We're really helping people like live better lives, more healthy lives. So that's like what I really enjoy about it. But I enjoy, like, in our YouTube guy, JX, one that does our vlogs and our post podcast and stuff. He's super fun to be around too. So it's like us three getting some caffeine or smoking some weed, and just having a conversation, and people love it. So it's hard not to enjoy.
And speaking of weed, I mean, everyone, that when they talk about you, sometimes they'll talk about, oh, he smokes weed and stuff like that. What is it, other than the recreational use? What does it do for you as a fighter? Does it help you sometimes with nerves? Does it help you recover physically? Like, what is it? Apart from the fun you have doing it, are there any other benefits that you see that you would recommend perhaps to other fighters or people in the sports world, of the benefits that you've had for yourself?
Yeah, it's a tool just like anything. You can abuse it. You can it depends how you use it. You can definitely abuse it, and there's times that I definitely do. I'm taking, I'm like, God, I don't need to smoke, but I'm going to. But I feel like I'm really good at kind of catching myself in that. It's just like people that drink coffee all day. They're abusing it. They shouldn't be drinking coffee all day. They shouldn't be having a cup of coffee at 5 p.m. So it depends what perspective you look at it. You can look at weed in a totally different perspective than what it really is. Um, like I said, coffee's the opposite of weed for the most part. It's like an upper super caffeine, but I think it's a tool for me that can really help with getting into your breath, getting into a deep meditative state, into a deep breath work. Um, and it can make things more enjoyable, tastes better. Like it just does. I think it's because you focus more on the taste and you're more aware of the actual taste of it instead of just eating it, watching it. You're eating it. Like when I'm eating it, I'm closing my mouth and I'm enjoying that food. So I think there's a lot of things that it can help with. But like I said, you can for surely abuse it.
Do you fight better high?
No, I don't. I don't smoke high. My reaction time when I fight needs to be 100%. I need to be I need to be ready to kill. Not saying that, like I said, it's different for everyone. But when I'm high, I'm not necessarily. I don't know. Sometimes I get up and I love hitting my Bob in there, that little dummy. I'll smoke and boom, 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 punch him up. But when it's go time, I'm not high. I'm 100% sober.
Do you have any rituals before you go out and before your walkouts during the fight? And are you? I mean, I know there's some guys that I've talked to that they don't eat the day of the fight. They're so nervous. I know Cowboy Cerrone was talking about throwing up before his fights. I mean, what do you like before your fights?
I was sitting in the back meditating. I was breathing with the breathing app. I was zero. I had zero nerves. I wasn't. I'm sure there's video. Maybe I don't know if there's someone's video. I was literally just sitting there waiting. I did my warm up, stretched. I was just sitting there, crisscross applesauce, waiting for them to tell me to go fight.
Now, where do you see yourself? Maybe if I tell you Sugar Sean O'Malley in 5 years, 10 years, what would you say? Do you set goals for yourself? What do you imagine that to look like?
Um, I'm gonna still obviously be fighting even in 10 years. So to become world champ, you have to live a certain lifestyle, and that's train. That's train. Your life is revolved around training. So I'm gonna train for the next 10 years. I don't have any other plans. I'm gonna get really, really, really good. I want to become. I think to become the best fighter in the world, you have to be athletic. I don't think you have to be athletic to win a fight, but to become the best fighter in the world, you have to be athletic. You just got to. It's fighting. You have to have a certain mindset, a championship mindset. You gotta stay healthy because that's a big. Getting injured sucks and it's part of it. So taking precaution there and recovering, like I said, the hot, cold, stretching is important for longevity. So, um, 5 years I'm going to be doing the same thing, whether I'm champ or I'm not champ yet. 10 years, hopefully doing the same thing.
Is there a piece of advice or something that someone once told you that you hold on to or think about on a daily basis?
Not. Mm, I feel like there's a bunch of different things that I'll think. I don't know. It's nothing that I can really think of off the top of my head. Just I don't know. I try to wake up every morning and say, "Let's have a good day. Today's gonna be a good day." Just kind of. I don't know where I learned that, but a lot of things I do, whether it's journaling or even the hot cold, like all that stuff, I learned from listening to podcasts, listening to smart people talk, or reading a book written from a smart person. Like I'm just taking knowledge that I think is going to be useful in my life and implementing it.
Is there one? I was going to ask you this earlier. Is there one particular book that you would recommend as? I mean, I know you said self help or in that kind of category that maybe changed your life or you think about that really helped you.
Um, God, there's a couple different ones. I know I have some in my notes because I get asked that question a lot. I think one book that helped me, not even related to fighting, was Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz. just how you look at love. That's a whole nother subject, but I think a lot of people could benefit from that book. Um, another person that has books, podcasts, courses is Paul Check, who will completely just blow your mind. The dude's so smart. Um, Sam Harris, I listen to his podcast, and I do his meditation app, Waking Up. And then a lot of people, when Joe Rogan has people on, I really, I love Joe Rogan's podcast because he's holding conversations with all these guys that are just masters in an area. So it's cool listening to him talk to other, really smart people. But as far as just another book, I'm trying to think. The Obstacle of the Way by Ryan Holiday helped a lot in those 2 years. He also wrote The Ego is the Enemy. I read those two over the last 2 years. Those books helped a lot, especially what I was going through.
What I was gonna ask you, what was going on Rogan like for you? What was that experience all like for you?
Yeah, I was nervous for. I definitely got more nervous for that than I did for fighting, for sure. Not nervous, just nervous, like knowing like, okay, his podcast is like 3 hours. It was nice Tim was on there. We all got to just kind of chit chat, but it was a cool experience. I got way too high when we started smoking. I was just like I just felt stupid. But yeah, going on there was super cool. I'm hoping I can go back on there again. I think about the last couple of years since I've been on there. I went through a lot. It'd be fun to talk to Joe Rogan. It's always cool to be able to talk to him. So yeah, going on there was sweet.
Have you been able to take like, a little time to just sit there and reflect on the past 3, 4 years and I mean, it's a lot has happened, I can imagine. I mean, just growth as a fighter, the attention. I mean, people follow you and know your name. I mean, have you been able to kind of let that all sink in a little bit?
Yeah, I feel like I try not to let it get to my head to where I feel like I just want to do what I want to do and be my true self, not try to be someone because this will be cool or that will be cool. I try to just be goofy, just be myself. Um, but yeah, I've just kind of sat back and seen everything that's happened, and it's all happened because of the discipline, because of the hard work I'm putting in. So I just need to just know, like, you can get to where I'm at right now from 4 years ago with the hard work that I've put in. So if I want to be world champ, I got to stick with this life, this routine, this wake up, and it's time to train. Like, I got to have that mentality.
Is there one thing that you would look back and tell a young 10, 12-year-old Sean that you now know? Some piece of advice that maybe you wish a 10-year-old you knew, or maybe a 10-year-old listening to this one day might listen to and think, okay, I want to be like Sean O'Malley.
Yeah. I remember if I asked myself, if I got to tell myself something, it would be nothing really, just because of I'm happy where I'm at right now. And I wouldn't want my life to change going in any different course of way. But just if I had to tell a young kid something, I think it's so important to just kind of become mindful and be aware of your thoughts and why you have certain thoughts and why you do certain things and patterns, and just kind of that, I think, super important. If it might be tough for a kid 10 or 12 years old if they weren't introduced to it when they were really little, but I don't know. That's a tough one. I've been around 10 or 12-year-olds, so it's like I don't even know how they act. They're just little kids. I don't know.
And how do you I mean, a lot of fighters have like sports psychologists, people they talk to. Have you ever experienced or used that? I know some do hypnosis, stuff like that. Um, have you how I know that the thoughts part of your life as a person and as a fighter is equally as important. How do you manage that aspect other than writing and writing journaling and stuff like that?
I just prepare really well. I prepare smart. I prepare to go to war. Every time I prepare for 15 minutes. It's nice when it's only 2 minutes, no injuries, but when I'm in there, I'm prepared to go for 15 minutes, and I'll go over situations in the sauna or in the hot tub or in the cold plunge. I'll see different scenarios and stuff. So I think just preparing like that, and feeling healthy and just knowing how good I am and believing in my skill and really truly believing that I could knock out anyone on any night, anyone in my in my division. Um, I think it's just from the preparation that I and the confidence I get from training and stuff. So yeah, I think that's what really yeah.
What do you see? What do you see? Life after fighting look like for you? I don't know if you've thought about that at all. Are there any things that you want to get around to that you maybe don't have the time for now?
No, kids and jiu-jitsu. I think jiu-jitsu is going to be a part of my life forever. Train just and I'm talking about the gi, just kind of no gi's fun. That's what I did today. We did a group. We did 6 7 minute rounds, no gi competition training. But in the gi, it's a super fun. It's fun because of all the people that it brings into the gym and the community around jiu-jitsu. It's super fun. And Tim owns his own gym. He's the coach there, he's the professor there. So it's super fun to go in there and train. So I think after fighting, I think we're gonna continue to do jiu-jitsu and have kids.
Now, to wrap things up, what do you hopefully, I mean, you're still super young, but do you ever think about legacy? What do you hope the Sugar Sean O'Malley legacy is when it's all said and done, hopefully in 80, 90 years? But what do you ever think about how you hope to be remembered?
No, I don't really think about that. I think I just got to keep doing what I'm doing, and then if I am, I am. If I'm not, I'm not. But I think just keep doing what I'm doing. I don't really think about it.
Beautiful. People can find you on Twitter and Instagram at Sugar Sean MMA. And then listen to your Timbo Sugar Show podcast that they can find anywhere,
Much
anytime.
anyway, yeah.
Beautiful. Hey man, Sean, absolute pleasure to talk to you. I appreciate you taking the time. If you're ever in New York fighting, first of all, I'll come see. But second of all, would love to have you in the studio. And I appreciate the time, brother. And wish you nothing but the best on this quest to become champ.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it.